insane hyperlapse. Very slick. I know, a little too perfect. This perfect feeling of ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Ryan Reacts. I think we're at episode 9 already, which is crazy. Just in case you're new here, my name's Ryan. I'm an editor, content creator, and full-time agency owner, which means I deal with content every single day. And in order to keep me at the top of my game, I review and take inspiration from some of the best creators out there, ultimately with the aim of making myself better. Today, we are back into the cinematography game. 3 fantastic reels have been selected and I'm excited to break a lot of it down for you. There's one that's 3 seconds and yeah, I'm quite convinced there's like a million things in there I need to break down. Now, before all the keyboard ninjas come at me this week, I know the audio is sadly a little bit worse. Somehow I didn't think, and when I borrowed my camera to someone, I didn't think about the mic that's on there. So bear with me this week. But I promise I'm still gonna try and compensate in energy. And with that being said, let's dive into video 1. Here we go. Now, I think that a lot of this is AI generated, and I'm going to try to break down why. But first, let's start with the one bit that I'm certain is at least not AI generated, or well, in part. So, obviously, my guy does that trick, whatever you call this weird handstand turn thing. I think that he and this path is about the only thing that's not AI generated in this thing. For the rest, I have a feeling that especially the background is manipulated. But first, I'm going to talk about this insane hyperlapse that he does on himself, right? This segment here where you see all of his clothes change, that's called a hyperlapse. Now, how you do this? The first shot, he's probably done this twice. The last shot, I mean, he's wearing this outfit, and the first shot, he's wearing a different outfit. What you do is you render this video as a whole shit ton of PNGs. There's literally, when you go into export in Premiere Pro, there's a function to export as JPEGs or PNGs, whichever you prefer. JPEGs is going to be slightly smaller in size. Then you go into Photoshop and you drag all of these PNGs in there. And what you're going to do is you're going to select his, you're going to select the t-shirt, plus you're going to select the pants, and you're simply going to type in different prompts. So this one is probably a prompt shorts, plus I don't know, black t-shirt. Here we have a red wife beater, plus baggy jeans, and then we have another one which is the same again. And you just use generative AI per JPEG to give a different prompt. Once you've changed all of those, what you do is you drag it back into Premiere Pro on the timeline, all of these JPEGs in order, because that's how you can put the video back together, right? And then you have sort of this segment, like specifically just the part whereby his clothes change so often, right? He didn't wear like 15 different outfits and made like a million match cuts. I don't believe that. Also, by the way that it dresses some of them, it's very weird. Then let's get into the rest. This is also super simple but very slick. Let me break it down frame for frame. This effect you see here at the beginning is called punch holes. It's a super simple but highly effective technique in order to grab attention. And the way that these color changes have been done, first you need a punch hole overlay. Then what you're going to do is, in order to change the color here, you're going to have to go to the video that the punch hole overlay is on top, and you're going to have to change the coloring of that by using the effect in Premiere Pro called invert. And then you have to play around with the settings of that invert in order to get this like RGB look. Then when you go to the next one, this time the effect has been put on the punch holes overlay and the video behind is back to normal. And then you change the settings of it to extract under blend mode. That's gonna make it white. And then he reveals it. But this is a super simple technique, but I don't know, just looked so slick that I want to use it this week in one of my own. Cool, then the rest. Around here, you see a little bit of like distortion, and his head is cut out a little bit too clean in comparison to the rest of the video. On top, these people don't really move the whole time. Both look very, very slick, very polished. I don't know, a little too perfect, which makes me believe that this is AI. Maybe you guys think, well, no shit, Sherlock. But I don't know, when I watched it the first time, I was convinced the guy just stood there and made 2 different time lapses, but at this point, I'm quite convinced this is AI. I'm not too familiar when it comes to AI and also the settings, so I would have no idea in all honesty which prompts you're going to put in this in order to get this effect. What I do know that he's done is the original video probably had this road here. He's then gone and rotoscoped himself out and adapted the background, probably with either generative AI or I believe Runway. You also have options whereby you can turn images into movies, that he's solely taken the tram in this case and added movement to it. I honestly don't know how he's done this, but it is very slick. The shadows on the floor, although, would imply that it is at least real, and so as I said, I stick to my idea that the background in this case is AI generated and the road here is real and he's done this for real, but the rest of it is AI generated. And there we have it. I believe that's how he did video 1. If this is how he did it, it's crazy what AI is coming to and I fucking love it. Let's go on to the next one. Now the next one is 3 seconds, but as I said at the start, this one has a fuck ton of shit I'm gonna go break down. So here we go. 3 seconds! Did you see how much was in there? It was insane. So there's a couple of things that we'll have to talk about, right? This first shot alone is pretty wild. I'm not really sure how they got this, but as far as her, what they've done is they've played around with the blend mode. Now I'm gonna assume they've used the extract blend mode similarly to what I explained when it came to the previous video, and then they've added an overlay here, this film, in order to give this like vintagey look. Fast forward, the light goes from here to here to here to show her back in normal color. Super smart. Now I'm not really sure how they did this spot effect. It could be that this spot is just made in post by adding in a circle, making that circle white. It could also be that while filming they actually had a spotlight set up. Now I have done one of these before and it's actually as easy as being able to do it with a toilet roll yourself. All you have to do is get a toilet roll, which everyone has, tape it around the camera section of your phone. Now then you have a flashlight, put on the flashlight and you'll find that the toilet roll will shoot a shot onto the wall. All you need is a dark background and then you'll have a shot somewhat like this. Obviously it's advised to get a high quality flashlight that's probably going to make it look slicker, but if you cannot afford that or if you need to do this quickly, you want to test it out, that's a simple technique to get a highly effective shot. Here to the bottom half of this image, obviously where the circle ends, it's the same as before and just 2 layers on top of each other, and they've used the circle as a means to bring the color back in. Then this shot is something which I don't see a whole bunch, but it's fantastic. Obviously this is a different shot layered on top. Now the transition between the two, this here, is called a morph cut. When you look in Premiere under effects for morph cut, that they will create this effect. And you can keep the 2 layers on top of each other. You will just need an additional layer, and in between the 2 videos add the morph cut. In addition, she's got a bunch of other little things coming here. Obviously this clip out is a completely different shot, this time in black and white. I think this is the difference blend mode, but I could be wrong. Same as the film overlay being brought back in. This is another one of the morph cuts, same effect, and then just layered on top. Could also be that these are just images, by the way. I only realized now because there's obviously no movement in them, which makes stuff even easier when you just layer images. And then you just add in other images here, also in the extract blend mode. Then you got a weird dude with like a burglar's mask on his face. Crazy. Maybe I just said something crazy. So this is just a lot of the same shots, but it gives a super unique vibe. I felt like it's super aesthetic. There's a lot going on, and I recently started playing with these extract blend modes in order to kind of get a unique feel. I felt like it created something different. Cool. Going on, this here is a JPEG and then a paper overlay, and the paper overlay is set to, I would say, screen. and that's what's going to create the like this feeling here. Now, another trick I realized this week is that you have a similar one in Canva, whereby you can just search for paper frames, and you will find a frame whereby you can add a picture and it will automatically give this type of effect, and all you need to do is look for a tape and layer that on top. Who doesn't love Canva? You don't have to design the shit yourself in Photoshop. Bob's your uncle. Continuing. The two images split, right? So here's where one gets, or where it's two layers, one gets pulled over to the left, probably through the positioning keyframe, the other gets pulled over to the right. Then I'm not really sure what's happening here. It looks very crazy. Like, it could be that this is another morph cut. That's pretty wild. And then they're bringing back in the weird circle thing from before. This would be a sick like clothing ad if that's what it was for. Maybe it was even. I see constantly the same brand, Carhartt. Maybe this is just an ad. In which case it works. Look at me breaking it down. Very sick. So this one, again, I've been getting a lot into this shit as well, so that's why it came at a fantastic time and ultimately why I wanted to share it. This here is a vintage border. If you look for border, cinematic border 4x5, you'll find something like this. Try and focus on one whereby the edges are super blurred and the coloring is off, and also that it adds this grain. This is what's gonna give it that beautiful vintage feel, and it's just, I love this shit. Right, and then if we just look at the images in the background, this here, at this point, again, it's two layers. The top layer has a natural, I would say, grain over it. This is probably, you can get this effect by adding something called noise. And then in order to make it pop out of the border, the second layer is cropped all the way up until here, and then add a slight feather to the crop so that the transition feels a little bit more smooth and it's not just a clean line. And then the top, the layer that's now on top, the one that's sticking out, is where you change the blend mode again to exclusion. And then obviously add in your little film thingies in order to, you know, give it that spice. And then here, I'm not really sure what's happening. I feel like this is morphing, but I'm not sure what, how, or why. And then it's just continuous of the effects also in the beginning. Now, as you'll see, even though there's a lot going on in this video for 3 seconds, it's basically just two effects constantly being done in slightly different ways. It speaks to something I again spoke about last week, is not overpowering your video with a bunch of different edits. Just because you can edit something doesn't mean you should. It's something that I'm really trying to come to terms with myself. Cool. Let's go on with the last video, and this was Arthur Squared and Maximize coming through with the partnership I didn't know I needed, but certainly wanted. I'm just gonna play it at first because it's another fabulous story, and then we'll break down some of the things in there that are just crazy to me.
Hello?
Hello? Sorry.
How do you make a masterpiece?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Bro, it's been 3 days since I left my piano, and I just can't decide if I should finish my song with a A sharp or a D.
Is it really that big of a deal?
It's like choosing between my father or my mother, between Drake or Kendrick Lamar, between Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi.
Damn, it sounds like you need a break.
Yeah.
You're chasing perfection, and I get it. We all are. That's where a masterpiece is born. But it's not about what I say or what anyone else says. It has to come from within. If that means flipping a coin or listening to both endings 100 times over, sure. But in order to truly create a masterpiece, you have to solely focus on making something you yourself are proud of. You have to be your audience.
Okay, so that was a D. Someone turn on the lights, please.
Yeah, that was 1 minute, and I feel inspired to go and make music myself, even though I don't make music anymore. I loved everything about this video. It's a prime example of, it's why I make content. It's hopefully to inspire people to make shit. I feel like this Maximize channel has been absolutely crushing it over the past months. I don't know how insanely fast they grew, but they've been doing fantastic. And this partnership together with Arthur Squared, who's been on here before, who I think is also just a fabulous storyteller and has such authentic personality, I fucking loved it. Now, let's break some of the crazy effects they had going on in here. So this shot here is quite simply an overlay with a slight transparency on it, opacity set to like 90, maybe even 80. Obviously the text in there, Arthur Squared calling. Now, adding in the sound effects of the buzz of the phone is what's really selling it. Then obviously a zoom out just as he picks up the phone, using the movement of the phone to show more context of where this guy actually is. Fantastic.
Hello?
The way this guy also uses text throughout the whole thing is just insane.
How do you make a masterpiece?
Then this freaking room is beautiful. From a framing perspective, this is just a beautiful room. I can't say it better than that. Like, it's so square. It's these things you call leading lines dragging you to the main point, the center of the video. Whenever you're shooting something, if you try and look at the lines in the room that push towards the main subject, and ideally, let me show you a way that would work better here, actually. I don't know how well you can see on this. I hope well. This here would be a line, and this here would be a line. Now, these two lines would be pointing towards me. So actually, if my table was small enough, and I had a curtain here, which I currently don't, sitting in this corner would actually be better because the two lines are pointing towards the center thing that you should focus on. Ultimately, using leading lines as a way to drive attention. This guy obviously knows what he's doing.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Bro, it's been 3 days since I...
Pay attention to these subtle sound effects. They're so good.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Bro, it's been 3 days.
3 days, click, click, click. Like, I feel like I sound like a broken record at this point, but using sound effects in order to drive attention, keeping the attention within the video is going to make you so much better as a content creator.
Since I left my piano, and I just can't this...
How he does this
3
with
days
3
since
days.
I left my...
And then there's another part in this as well. He obviously has an automation on the scale and the position. It becomes smaller, but in addition, he has something on there called basic 3D. And the tilt of it is keyframed to go from standing straight, and as it goes down, it tilts, meaning that it lies like this. And that's how they get it to look like it's 3D lying on the piano.
My piano, and I just can't...
So here, obviously, you see that he's in the picture twice. The way this is done is two different shots. Obviously, he can't clone himself. One whereby he's at the piano, the other whereby he's sitting in the chair. And then there is an opacity between the two shots in order to make him in both the pictures. It's essential when you're filming this that you don't wait hours between the shots, because then the lighting will change. So do this as quick as possible behind one another while the lighting is still consistent, because if the lighting changes, the shot's fire.
Decide if I should finish my song with a A sharp or a D.
Is it really that big of a deal?
It's like choosing between my father or my mother.
Now, how he does this text
Or my
coming up
mother,
behind
between
his
Drake.
head, it's simply position keyframe. So imagine that the original text from him starts here, right? If we imagine it in full, and then you position it to fly up like this. And then on top, once you set those position keyframes, so if you take the first keyframe, right click, and then select ease out, and then go to the second keyframe, right click, select ease in. Now, next to the stopwatch, there's going to be an arrow. If you press the arrow down, you get a different line. And on this line, you'll be able to shape the movement of how you want the text to fly up. In this case, they have it very fast at first and then slow coming up, which means your curve is kind of shaped like this. The second part of this is that there's obviously a crop behind his shoulders to show the text coming up from behind him rather than that it's in front of him. And then finally, there's an automation on the opacity, which means that at first it's not as bright, and then once it's clear, it gets brighter. You see, especially in this one. Here you see as I fade it, that it is less bright than when it's here. when you change the positions of these, it's good to add the transform effect, and in the transform change the shutter angle to 180 and switch off the shutter composition tick mark that's underneath the shutter angle. This will add a natural blur, and it means you don't have to go in and add Gaussian blur and stuff to it as well.
Between Drake or Kendrick Lamar, between Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi.
Damn, it sounds like you need a break.
Yeah.
You're chasing perfection, and I get it. We all are. That's where a masterpiece is born. But it's not about what I say or what anyone else says.
And then this music coming in, this perfect feeling of inspirational, uplifting music. It's a masterpiece chosen very well. And then of course the shots that everyone is familiar with, that also is what makes Maximize, which is why this content partnership felt so perfect, because it's a story between these two creators which somehow just makes complete sense.
It has to come from within. If that means flipping a coin or listening to both endings 100 times.
The fonts that he always chooses is just fantastic.
Endings 100 times over.
Oh, how he does this effect, super easy. Obviously the shot is filmed kind of like this, right? And as he moves out of screen, what you do is you set an opacity keyframe around his head, right? And you kind of close it like this, and then you move forward a keyframe and you extend the opacity keyframes to again fill the gap, and then as you move forward again, you again continuously doing that until the subject is fully out of frame, and that's how you kind of have this crop in effect come in. This effect, by the way, is similar to the piano one whereby the 3D was on there. Here he's done the tilt, and then it's keyframe to come down and turn. So that's just a clever movement thing. But using basic 3D as an effect to manipulate text is super underrated trick still. Try that.
Sure, but in order to truly create a masterpiece.
So each time they obviously do the same effect here. Obviously they've brought him back in here again and just cropped it.
Masterpiece, you have to solely focus on
or well, this one it's the same shot, but they've, instead of cropping around Arthur, in this case they've chosen a subject which was there, and this looks like a lamp post or a post box, I don't know what it is. But as they zoom in on the post box, the moment when the frame is fully covered, that is the segment whereby you can bring in the new shot. If you don't do that and it's like half covered, it's gonna look weird. Just don't do that.
Focus on making something you yourself are proud of. You have to be your audience.
I always feel so inspired after recording these episodes, and it instantly makes me want to go out and create videos for myself. I'm already working on compiling enough footage to start working on some sort of vlog. Even if that's not necessarily going to be a weekly thing right away, it's certainly getting me outside of my own comfort zone and trying to go back to creating content even more than this, which I already love doing. So if that's something you want to see me do, then smash the subscribe button, would you? It helps me out more than you know. And with that being said, we've come to the end of today's video. So I'll see you in the next one. Adios!